There's a bit of a scandal brewing today because the Greenpeace has released a 2018 document from a PR firm called Navigator that sets out a strategy for how the hydrocarbon industry in Canada can undermine and perhaps kill the clean fuel standard from the federal government. Now, this may seem a little bit esoteric and kind of inside baseball to some of folks who don't cover the energy industry, but really what this comes down to is Navigator and its members, which include many of the high-profile oil and gas associations in Canada, really trying to do an end run around climate policy in Canada. To discuss that, we've got Dr. Sara Hastings-Simon from the University of Calgary and the Colorado School of Mines to talk with us. So welcome to the interview, Sara.
Good morning.
This is a big one, and you are front and center in, I think, some of this debate because you recently wrote an excellent op-ed for CBC about climate foot dragging. So why don't we start there?
Sure. So yeah, interestingly, that op-ed was really focused around some of the announcements around a focus on technology. But what I did do was take a look at this concept of climate delay and kind of these discourses or the ways that people are making climate delay part of the conversation. And so what climate delay is, it's really an evolution of the debate around climate action from one of outright climate denial. So, climate change isn't real or there isn't a human caused element, to one where groups are accepting that climate change is real, but they're finding other ways to delay credible climate action. And so this is, the kind of four classic types of delay. They range from, redirecting responsibility, emphasizing the downside. So what are the costs to acting on climate? There is an element of surrender. So, we can't do anything anyway, so we might as well give up. And then this last one that's on, focusing on these sort of non-transformative solutions. So the technological optimism that we just, we need to wait for that next technology that's on the horizon, and then we'll take action. And that's, it's something that is, as I said, it's not new, it's an evolution, but we're seeing it more and more. So
within that framework, what's your response to this Navigator document?
So I think the document itself, is a kind of a shockingly good illustration of three of those discourses, right? So the idea of redirecting responsibility, particularly around the small contributions on a global scale, right? So that's referenced in the document. There's definitely a lot of emphasis on the downside piece, so kind of both the overall costs, but then also this like appeal to sort of social justice. So emphasizing, the potential cost of action borne by certain groups, when really those costs, those groups face the highest costs from climate change, and you can address that through policy design. And then also, very much has that element of climate doomerism, the idea that like there's nothing that we can do, so we may as well, give up. So they're really all, I read this almost as a like manual for how to implement this, this climate delay strategy.
Yeah, the most egregious part of this, from my point of view, is this emphasis, and I think if I can, I'll read it out. They want to promote an appreciation that fighting climate change is a losing battle. That comes from the document. And given the number of public surveys we've seen over the last little while, where like 70, 75, 80% of Canadians believe that, agree that we need to take action on climate change. This really stood out for me.
Yeah, it's trying to, I think there's a recognition that is, in a sense, that's the whole ballgame. If there becomes, and as I think there has, a strong push from, across party lines, that a majority of Canadians want to see action, then it's very, becomes hard to push back against. And so that's where, finding ways to try to advance that. That's sort of the main battlefield, if you want. And so those elements of both, I think you see both in what they reference of framing this as a losing battle by both talking about the costs and sort of all the things that, you would have to lose, but then also talking about, what Canada's impact and what everybody else is doing. So, and again, they're all kind of there are policy design answers to all of these things, right? We do certainly need to be thoughtful about the, the distributional impacts of climate policy on different groups. That's certainly something we should be concerned about, but there are very much solutions to those problems. And instead they're being put forward as, well, this is a problem, so therefore we shouldn't take action at all.
See, the final point here, Sarah, but I find this very interesting because I noticed beginning in 2018, all of a sudden there was a flood of these messages from all kinds of different groups and different, I remember people like some of the Alberta-based oil and gas leaders were being promoted as thought leaders, because they were promoting these ideas. And I wonder, where did that come from? It was just like all of a sudden there was this, somebody had sent around a PowerPoint presentation and everybody in the industry and all the associations read it. And here we are. It turns out there was a playbook.
Yeah, I think I think you're exactly right. And, there's folks like Amy Westervelt at the Drilled reporting and podcast and others that have done a really excellent job tracking this, both within Canada, but it has a lot of links to the same kind of arguments that are playing out across the US as well. And I think you actually see that as well too. Canada and the US stand a little bit apart from, what maybe some of the European majors are doing in their approach. Not to say that they also haven't had elements of this climate delay, but it's starting maybe to separate a bit there. And so, yes, I think it's not a coincidence that you are hearing a lot of these things. This is really an approach, and it goes back, frankly, a long time, right? I mean, folks like I'm blanking on the name of the book, but Merchants of Doubt, really trace the story of creating doubt around first tobacco, and then the same group of people, that moved that forward into climate, and first with the climate denial, and now the delay, and so yeah, I mean, it's not a sort of coincidence or a something that came out of nowhere, but it's really a manufactured plan to kind of speak with these talking points in mind.
Sarah, thank you very much. Really appreciate this. We'll look forward to chatting with you in the future about energy issues. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Markham.